Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel. This is my review for the 10th movie in the Friday the 13th series, Jason X, which came out in 2001 in Spain for some reason. It didn't get a theatrical release in the US until April of 2002, just 1 week before Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. But anyway, this movie is the infamous Jason Voorhees in space movie. I don't think I really need to go into the plot any more than that. It's Jason Voorhees in outer space, and it takes place in the distant future of 2455. So this is the Friday the 13th movie that is often regarded as one of the worst of the series, and one of the worst slasher movies out there. There's a lot of people out there that really despise this movie amongst Friday the 13th fans. Chris Stuckman hates this movie, Roger Ebert hates this movie, and I actually want to read the first couple of sentences of his written review when this came out. And this is quote for quote. "This sucks on so many levels. Dialogue from Jason X. Rare for a movie to so frankly describe itself. Jason X sucks on levels of storytelling, character development, suspense, special effects, originality, punctuation, neatness, and eptness of thought." And yeah, everything that he says about Jason X is absolutely true. Which is why I actually love this movie. Okay, you know what? Let me back up for a second. Love is a strong word for this movie. A very strong word that really, to be serious, is not in my vocabulary, because Jason X is not a good movie. There is nothing about it that would convince me that it is a good movie, but it's the very definition of a good, bad movie. And because of the prior Friday the 13th movies, and just the overall franchise in general, I honestly think this is one of the better movies. Let me make my case before you actually get into the comments and start saying how wrong I am. I've always said that the Friday the 13th series was a joke. Most of the movies in the franchise are trying to be straightforward horror movies, but throughout all of these movies, there will occasionally be some moments that are so goofy and outlandish that you're not sure if it's played for laughs or if it's meant to be scary. The only movie that really understood what the Friday the 13th series was is Jason Lives. That movie really knew that the series was kind of formulaic and ridiculous, so it decided to have fun with it and be a meta-comedy. Jason X is not that same level, but it has that same attitude of, yes, we know this is ridiculous, so we're gonna have fun with it. And look, it's Jason Voorhees in outer space. When you take a film series into space, especially one that's as long-running as Friday the 13th, that pretty much means you're out of ideas. And this movie is essentially just throwing its hands up in the air saying, look, we give up, it's Jason in outer space, you can either take it for what it is or just go about your day. And in my opinion, I think Jason X mostly succeeds in what it's trying to be. Now, I know what some people are thinking right now. How can you say that about Jason X, and yet you criticize Jason Takes Manhattan? Well, let me say this first of all. Jason Takes Manhattan is a total lie of a movie. The movie doesn't even take place in New York City until an hour and 4 minutes in, and even then, it's mostly shot in dirty alleyways in Vancouver, not actually New York City. So that movie does not live up to the potential that it has. And plus, as I said beforehand, there are some moments in this movie that are so goofy and outlandish that you're questioning whether it's trying to be funny or not. With Jason X, not only does it actually live up to what it promises, but I am convinced that everyone on board with this movie knows the type of movie that it is. They know it's silly, they know it's ridiculous. The opening sequence of the movie is Jason Voorhees being cryogenically frozen, and then once he's brought on board the ship in the future, he slowly starts to regain consciousness just because you have two people screwing in the other room. And literally the sound of a woman's orgasm is what brings Jason Voorhees back to life. It's like he hears off in the distance, and Jason just sits up like this. I'm awake! I'm awake! And that's always been an unspoken cliche of the Friday the 13th series, or horror movies in general. Don't do drugs, don't have sex, and you might survive to the end of the movie. So this movie, without saying anything, pokes fun of that very idea that Jason Voorhees will kill you if you have sex. Even the Camp Crystal Lake simulator scene later on in the movie literally has two simulated campers that look at Jason and go, hey, you want a beer? Or you want to smoke some pot? Or we could have premarital sex. And then they get topless and go, we love premarital sex. Again, I am incredibly convinced that this movie knows how ridiculous it is, because those sequences are not played for suspense whatsoever. They are played for comedy. And the main actors really embrace the movie for what it is as well. I really get the impression that everyone here is in on the joke and just decides to fulfill their roles. I mean, nobody really stands out as being great or, dare I say, good, but they live up to their potential, they have fun with it, and some of these characters are kind of charming. Again, they're not interesting, and the movie sucks in character development, but again, there's sort of a charm to these people, even if they are flat-out cliches. I do like the final girl of the movie, Rowan. I do like KM. I like Janessa. I like Senaram. God, that's such a stupid-ass name. That's another thing about the movie. A lot of these future names are just incredibly stupid. But the coolest character of the movie, and in my opinion the coolest non-Jason character of the franchise, is Sergeant Bronsky. Sure, he's a stereotypical hard-ass Marine that looks like he belongs in Aliens more than a Friday the 13th movie, but he has a lot of fun with this role, and again, he's the coolest character of the franchise. Now, another really great thing about this movie are the kills, and between Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X, I've noticed that the kills have gotten more brutal and more creative ever since New Line took over. Because if you remember back in the Paramount days, the MPAA really went to town on those movies, especially part 5, 7, and 8. With these two movies, even with the theatrically released version of Jason Goes to Hell, the kills are quite brutal and there's some cool gore effects. And there are two kills in this movie that really stand out to me. The first is the recreation of the sleeping bag kill from A New Blood, where Jason Voorhees is just going to town on the two Crystal Lake simulated girls, and he's just slamming one sleeping bag with the other, and then slams it into a tree again. And it's a hilarious scene because Jason is just, again, slamming that sleeping bag on the ground before slamming it against the tree, and there's not even any music. There's no suspense to it at all. And again, I'm convinced that this movie knows it's a joke. The other is flat out cool, which is the Sub-Zero kill, where Jason Voorhees takes one of the scientists, sticks her head into liquid nitrogen, pulls it up, smashes her head on the counter to where her face is completely shattered, and then just throws her body onto the ground. Such an awesome kill. I'm not going to count the moment where Uber Jason just punches KM's head off, because she doesn't die because she's an android. But even then, that moment's hilarious, probably because of some of the dodgy special effects, which is probably a good time to move over into the criticisms of this movie, because, like I said beforehand, and I will keep saying this, it's not a good movie. When Roger Ebert said that this movie sucks on the level of special effects, he's not kidding, because while some of the practical effects look really good, even if Uber Jason's costume feels so fake and it's stuffed with so much fake muscle, the CGI in this movie is awful. This movie cost somewhere between $11 to $14 million, and this is the first time I've seen a movie that cost that amount to where I go, where did that money go? What did you guys spend it on? Because it clearly has a cheap look to it. I mean, the special effects in terms of the CGI are awful, but the production design is just flat out lazy. The sets of the Grendel are not too interesting. They just look like a shinier, cheaper version of something you'd see out of Star Wars or even Alien, which this movie rips off Alien and Aliens left and right. But then there's a moment in this movie where two characters are in a simulated game, sort of like the Danger Room from X-Men or the holodeck from Star Trek, and they're fighting these CGI monsters. The monsters look terrible, but I think one of the more baffling things is that the location these two characters decide to set this game in is literally just scaffolding with neon lights. And I'm like, come on! Like, you guys couldn't come up with a cooler simulated set than that? That's pathetic. And then the last thing I have to mention is all the acting from the side characters. While your main actors really seem like they're in on it and do the best that they possibly can, the side characters, mainly the people who are early Jason victims, are atrocious. Some of the dialogue, especially from the Marines in this movie when they're going out to hunt Jason, is so flat, so wooden, and these actors are just so lifeless. You scream like a girl. Screw you. You wish. That's the level of dry acting that this movie delivers. So it might sound like that I've said more positives about Jason X than negatives, but to be honest, the positives of this movie are more in that campy, backhanded compliment kind of way, because, again, Jason X is not a good movie. Sometimes it's just flat out terrible. There are moments in this movie where when it's terrible, it's pretty terrible. And anyone who says that this is a terrible movie is not wrong, and I'm not going to argue with people that it's a terrible movie. But I think it's a fun, bad movie. This movie right here is a prime example of why I have the rating watch at your own risk. Because it's a movie that you have to know whether or not it's for you. If you can embrace this for the kind of flat-out ridiculous trash that it is, then you'll have fun with it. In my opinion, like I've said beforehand, I think this is one of the better Friday the 13th movies because, like Jason Lives, it's in on the joke, except it's not done in a clever way like Jason Lives. But if you know for sure that this is not your thing at all, if you don't like horror movies or you're not a fan of watching bad movies in general, then Jason X isn't going to do it for you. To be honest, if you go into this movie with a bad attitude, then I hate to say this, but you're dumber than the movie itself, because you should know by this point, with the 10th Friday the 13th movie, whether it's for you or not. Again, it's Jason in outer space. That should be an indicator right off the bat, especially considering that this movie has one of the most gratuitous early 2000s trailers I have ever seen. The trailer for this movie, where it's played to Drowning Pool's bodies, should tell you everything you need to know. It's like the US trailer for Godzilla 2000, where it's played to Rob Zombie's Super Beast. Like, this is the kind of movie you're getting into if you watch it. And to be honest, I think this is a much better sci-fi horror comedy than Alien Resurrection was. I said that when I first reviewed Alien Resurrection 3 years ago, and I will still stand by that statement. And it's a good thing to know that I'm not alone in that case, because last month I did a Twitter poll on which movie people prefer to watch, Jason X or Alien Resurrection. And most people pick Jason X. And if you haven't seen my Alien Resurrection review, the reason I prefer Jason X is because Friday the 13th had no integrity from the beginning. And for this movie to just be as goofy and over the top as it is, it's kind of enjoyable. Whereas with Alien Resurrection, it's like watching a franchise fall from grace. Like, wow, you started off with Alien and Aliens, then you just de-evolved all the way down to Alien 3, and then, in my opinion, you slightly came back up with Alien Resurrection, but you're still a garbage movie. So again, when it comes to Jason X, I can't recommend it because I don't know how you'll treat this movie. But again, if you can embrace this for the trash that it is, that's a lot of fun. And there you go, that's my review for Jason X. I had to do that. So the next movie in line is Freddy vs. Jason from 2003, which is actually one of the movies that I've gotten the most requests to review ever since I started this particular channel. And if you were hoping that I'd review Freddy vs. Jason this year, then I'm truly sorry to disappoint you, but I won't be reviewing it. Much like with the Alien vs. Predator series, it doesn't feel right for me to review Freddy vs. Jason until I've reviewed the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels. But good news, next year's Halloween review series will be the Nightmare on Elm Street series. So once I finish the Nightmare series, I'm going to move into Freddy vs. Jason next year. But as for this year, we're going to end this long series of reviews with the 2009 remake or reboot of Friday the 13th. I know it's long past Halloween since I started this review series, but my goal was to end the series on Friday the 13th, and since this Friday is the 13th of November, perfect timing. But first I want to know what you guys think about Jason X. If you've seen it, what did you think? Do you think it's one of the better Friday the 13th movies, or do you think I'm full of shit and that it's one of the worst of the series? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, leave a comment, support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until then, this is the Real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.